Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Real Time with MK. I'm Vivek Nair. It's been a while since I joined with the show again because all the experts in my guest list apparently were busy and everybody is busy with a lot of work on the plate. So I couldn't get the right guest for the show. But today I have a fantastic topic to cover. It's the time when every organization is relying on technology to deliver the best experience for their customers, right? So everybody is trying out various options, bringing out various tools on board, etc., etc. Then a lot of our customers, a lot of our clients are complaining about they're not able to write they are not able to adopt the right tool in the right way, and some of the times it's heavy investment backfiring big time. So today I have Mr. Gaurav Rai joining me. He is the senior VP innovation and strategy. He is everything about technology. If you have anything to discuss about technology, he's the go-to person, especially when it comes to customer experience, process management, process improvement. He is the go-to person. So if I have to introduce Gaurav is a problem solver, right? And that serves him well in his current role as the head of products and innovation at MattsenKumar. So as part of the outsourcing ecosystem, he deals with a lot of clients across verticals and industries. And his team and he leading them, they tackle a lot of problems, challenges faced by the clients via technological interventions. He has, to go back on his background, he has graduated as a software engineer with more than 18 plus years of experience in data science, process improvement, process re-engineering, and product management domains. He's a certified black belt from ASQ. He's a champion in optimizing business process using Six Sigma and lean techniques. He has extreme exposure to e-commerce and travel industries and experience in application of data science tools, both in the areas of CX and content management. So today we will be picking his brain on technology. How can it play a role in delivering optimal CX? Let's bring him on without further ado. Hey, Gaurav.
Hey Vivek, it's nice to be here and thank you for the fantastic introduction. And I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Gaurav, I know you might have watched a couple of episodes of the show. We started this show to tackle the major challenges which every organization is facing during this pandemic. So we have been bringing on experts like Vivek, Rudraksh, etc., to talk about e-commerce outsourcing, and things like that. So today, our topic is, as you know, it's technology automation for CX. So I have collated or curated a set of 10 to 12 questions for you, and I'll be shooting them one at a time to you, and you can take it up as it comes. So ready for it?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So, Gaurav, first question, I want to talk about a domain-specific question. Like, for example, customer experience is a domain that has seen a lot of interesting intervention of technology and automation in recent times, right? So, what are your thoughts on the same?
Well, I always say that automation is not essentially a new thing. Right from the beginning when the whole industrialization started happening, we've been innovating, we've been trying to reduce manual efforts. So it's a continuous effort that has been going on for a long time. And all the innovation you see in recent times is in fact kind of built on what we've done in the past. So we really should be attributing our success in terms of our fast track innovation these days to the people who pioneered research and development. They pioneer technology and how to leverage technology to automate so much mundane and redundant tasks in current world.
Right.
But what has happened in the recent times is that a lot of industries are kind of moving online. The services which were more face to face, or you had to go to banks, or you had to go to outlets for your telecom issues. Now everything has moved online. So the interaction level of people has moved on from being physical and face to face to online, and that brings its own set of challenges. And that
Right.
set of challenges, I think, had to be recognized in a way that how do you tackle those situations? How do you make sure you keep your customers satisfied? And then also bring in an ease for not just for your customers, for your own employees as well, right? And
Right.
that's
Right.
why in the last few years we've really seen a lot of effort being put in the field of automation. In fact, a lot of newer companies have popped up who just do automation work for different industries and verticals. But it's not something new. You hear new buzzwords, and those buzzwords continue to change. But
Yep.
eventually, all of them have this baseline theme behind them. It's about figuring out ways to do things easily and in a more efficient way. Um,
Right.
so these days, you hear buzzwords like machine learning, artificial intelligence, NLP. Couple of years back, you probably would have heard big data. Uh, Before that, it was all data analytics. So it's almost the same efforts, new buzzwords, but we are moving at a very fast pace now, and I think it's beneficial for not just the ones who are delivering such solutions, but also for the end consumers as well. So I'm really excited to be part of this whole um, not just industry but an ecosystem in general, where we can contribute to making things easier for our end customer, and it's fantastic how it's moving.
Right, right. I can see that across industries, customers are impatient. They want service to be delivered when they need it, and it should be like instantaneous services and things. So, technology is the only way which can maybe address those needs specifically. All right. So, my next question is, why do you think organizations who are striving for superior customer experience, why they should focus on automation capabilities, and what are the top benefits automation and technology can bring for them?
So essentially, when you look at automation, you look at two primary drivers. I mean, this is my viewpoint. Everybody has their own understanding, but from my perspective, because I am in a very client-driven ecosystem, I deal with a lot of clients who are from different verticals and industries with different set of problems. So from my perspective, I think that the two biggest drivers for automation, one is to make things easier for your end consumer. Um,
Right,
and when I say easier, it's about reducing what everybody calls as customer effort these days. It's a new
right,
buzzword again, but
right,
probably we'll talk more about it as we go on. So that's one part. The second one is, of course, also streamlining your internal operations, which brings in more comfort to your own employees. And
right,
it's not just about, a lot of organizations think that bringing in automation is going to save them money, which of course is true, but eventually that money has to bring in value in terms of either making lives easier for your own employees or
right,
delivering higher level of value to your end clients. So you have to move up the value chain, both as an employer and also as a service provider to your end clients. Now, when we talk about reducing customer effort, over the last few years, what has happened, as I mentioned again, because a lot of companies are bringing their services online. These are the days of self-serve. That also brings in, the set of challenges where people do get stuck. People do.
Gaurav, your voice is breaking. Just uh, I think it's a network problem.
Is it okay?
Just
Is it
yeah,
better
yeah,
now?
it's fine now. Yeah,
Okay. So what I was saying was that because of the fact that a lot of companies are bringing their processes and services online, it brings in own set of problems for the customers, because while dealing with those services, they come and face few challenges, and they need somebody to resolve those challenges, right? So the whole communication channel up. How do you reach the company who is providing you services? How do you ensure that you are able to resolve the issues of your customers as easy as possible? So what automation does is that, you know you can reduce the effort of the customers by automating a lot of mundane tasks.
Right.
So the customers don't have to put in a lot of effort to get a resolution. So that's one
Right.
driver, which is the most important one, because eventually the customer is one who is the most important in your whole business ecosystem. And then
Right.
from an internal standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, in the past, I mean, every organization, when they start, all of their processes are manual. When I say manual, they have to work on Excel sheets, sometimes even paper sort of an environment. That has to go away, right? Because one, it wastes a lot of time, and second,
Yeah.
it doesn't really give an opportunity to your employees to bring in new skills, to upgrade their skills, to do more value enabled work rather than repetitive mundane tasks. So those
Right.
are the two key drivers where every organization should look at uh, before going towards the journey of automation. And then you talked about benefits a bit in the question. Now the benefits are enormous. I mean, the first thing I addressed was, of course, reduction in customer effort, and that results in a lot of things. If you make things easier for your customers, your metrics in terms of happiness goes up, your NPS goes up, your CSAT goes up, and when those things go up, customers are happy. They'll spend more with you. They'll stay with you for a longer. The loyalty increases. um, you reduce the churn, you less customers leave you, and then it's easier for you to upsell as well. When your
Right.
customers like you, they have a higher probability of buying more
Right.
services, more products, and that's where it's very important for you to make sure that you are keeping your end clients and end customers happy, right?
Right. Right.
From an internal organization standpoint, the benefits are higher employee retention rates, less attrition, more conducive environment, and also the upskilling of your employees. Now, upskilling is
Right.
very important because a lot of companies, they talk about upskilling, but upskilling wouldn't happen till the time there is a need for upskilling to happen, right? It's
Right.
not a
Right.
it's not a thing that's going to happen on its own. So when there is a need for people to learn new things, because otherwise they will be redundant, and it's a harsh truth, that's when they start to put in an effort to learn more. Organizations have spent millions of dollars in research and development and learning and new training development, but till the times the employees are not motivated to learn and upskill, it's not going to work. So so that's where the whole automation initiative comes in. You start automating things. People have to learn new things to be relevant in the company, and that really benefits the organization, because you as an organization are now upskilling yourself. You have more people who have a better knowledge of newer technologies, things which can be done in newer ways. So there are a ton of benefits, and we can spend hours talking about them, but I'll keep it short.
Right. Right. So, what I'm hearing is, it has got bringing in the right technology has got benefits from both internal stakeholders as well as your external stakeholders perspective. And obviously,
Yeah.
if all the metrics are positive when it relates to your customer, the organization will have huge amount of benefits as well. Right. So, moving on, I want to cover a little bit about the industries and the adoption of automation. So, according to you, which industries are the top adopters of automation for customer experience? And also, if you can share some trends where these companies or organizations have adopted automation for their CX improvement.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, again, it's a very I think subjective topic to talk about, because
Right.
I think everybody would have their own opinion. There's no right or wrong answer. And
Absolutely.
I think being in the industry, I would say, the whole initiative started, I think, with banking and telcos,
Absolutely.
primarily in North America, and then kind of moved over to the Europe as well, because of the fact that banks and telcos were the one who already had a huge amount of customer base. I mean, for obvious reasons. Other industries were prevalent, manufacturing, yes, but you do not kind of deal with end customers directly as a manufacturing unit. But as a bank, you have to
Right.
deal with your customers, right? Similar for telcos as well. And then when they started, bringing their services online, versus face-to-face interaction. I think there was this extreme level of surge in the amount of communication that started to happen through the regular channels, whether those were online channels like voice or email, or voice or chat, or they were passive channels like email. But all of that exploded fairly significantly, and these folks had to really ramp up, build their own call centers. Others, they decided to outsource, and then the whole outsourcing industry came into existence. But I
Right.
think those were the ones who kind of started the whole initiative of looking at this as a challenge, because it did become a challenge. If you look at historical communication channels and their challenges, they were fairly straightforward in terms of customer not able to get to the right agents. Let's say, for example, customers waiting online for so long, then customers don't get not getting the resolution from the agents, and they're getting irate, and all of those things that kind of entail during the process of a customer interacting with the organization. And I
Right.
think at that point, these organizations figured that they have to do something to kind of make things easier, not just for themselves, but also for the end clients as well. And that's where a lot of automation was brought in terms of looking at what exactly is happening in the communication world, and how we can kind of dissect those problems and bring in technology to solve them. Now, the challenges were at two levels. One, first, to even identify what's the problem. So, let's say, for example, if the customer is waiting 30 minutes on a call to get to an agent, you know what the problem is, but you don't really know why that problem is, unless and until you kind of get into the nitty-gritties. And it's very hard to actually dissect unless and until you're leveraging technology. It's very difficult. Um,
Right.
so they had to bring in that automation, not just to identify problems, but also to kind of bring in fixes. Whether those fixes were, driving people to self-serve on the websites instead of having them call in, and then moving over to helpful chatbots. Now the chatbots are
Right.
even more intelligent, where it's not just conversational dialogue happening, but more context-driven delivery is happening as well. So I
Right.
think that's where the whole initiative started. But then all the other industries also started to catch up. I mean, e-commerce was growing fairly quickly. You talk about Amazons of the world, and then Flipkarts in India, and they started facing the same problem. And I think they learned from these bigger and more older industries. They were
Right.
already doing so much work. They adopted, adapted, and I think they then became the pioneers. Now you look at all these newer industries, the e-commerces of the world, or even industries which never existed before, like food tech, for example. They are so open and adaptable in terms of acquiring technology to automate tasks
Right.
for their end customers. So it's spreading everywhere. But the trend you're seeing is that more younger, newer generation industries and verticals are more open to adopt the technology and really build it grounds up. So it's not that they will build their processes first and then wait for things to go wrong and then bring in solutions. They build their processes in knowing that automation is already built in. So
Right.
like for example, Zomato. I'm not sure if it's the right example right now, but they don't even have a voice channel. I mean, good or for bad, they only have a chat channel. Some of bit of it is automated. Some of it has challenges, but it's a bold step towards technology. You don't want to have people on phone. You just want to have a passive channel. It's not passive. It's still a real time, but very different from a voice interaction, right? And that's a debate in
Absolutely.
itself. So the newer organizations, newer verticals, newer industries are adopting the technology fairly quickly, and then it's giving a rise to a new set of companies as well. So companies who are just dedicated towards bringing automation, right?
Right.
So the only thing they do is to bring in the new technology to help these bigger organizations be more
Right.
streamlined. But to give you a definitive answer, I think it started off with a couple of industries. Now I think none of the industries can survive if they are ignorant to the fact that automation is not an option anymore. You have to kind of adopted to bring in so much efficiency internally to the organization and also make the lives of your end customers easier.
Right, right, absolutely. Because it's a good point you mentioned that nowadays no industry is uh, staying away from automation or technology, because there are companies who are coming on, even startups these days coming up with heavily loaded with technology to serve their customers better. So that's a very clear cut exam answer for about the journey of adoption of automation for CX. All right. So my next question is about customer communications, right? Because customer communications is an integral part of it's an integral part or a influencing factor for a good customer experience, right? So one of the most important areas where automation is deployed is that customer communication. So why is that critical, and what are the common trends you have observed in that area?
So, I think these days you cannot even separate customer experience and customer communication and look at them in a different light, I think. Because, I mean, there were times when companies would only produce their products or their services and that be it. Because probably there was a monopoly in certain areas because of the fact that customers did not have a lot of choices, because of the fact that there was no technology advancements or less technology advancements compared to what is right now. So it wasn't
Right,
a big deal for companies to really focus on customer communication that much. They were very focused on creating good products and then pushing down the stream to the customers. And then the idea was that everything would fall into place. If the product is good, we'll take care of communication. What's
right,
the big deal even if it's not that great, right? I mean,
right,
now that has really changed. The paradigm has shifted to a point where it's not just your core product. You have to look at your communication aspect as an integral part of your overall service delivery, because
right,
eventually customers have so much choice these days that they will drop you in a matter of seconds and move to a different vendor if you drop the ball anywhere, and primarily in your customer communication area. I would
right,
hate to be a client or a customer of a company who doesn't value me as a customer and doesn't prioritize my issues.
right,
And no matter how good their products might be, right? So let's say, for
right,
example, if I'm with Airtel right now, I might have options switch to Vodafone, to Idea, and so
right,
much more, irrespective of the fact that how good their services are, right? I mean,
right,
so it's extremely important for organizations to then focus on customer communication as an aspect to bring in automation and improve that piece of the business. Now, there's a lot of automation which also happens during your product development cycle or even your product designing state, which of course is out of the scope of this discussion. But in this sense, in this case, communication has to improve, and it has to improve to keep you competitive. Um,
right,
so if you talk about the innovation and the automation that has happened over the last few years, you do hear the buzzwords like NLP, which is natural language processing, and then artificial intelligence, machine learning coming to the field of communications. Um, all of these, first on one side, are technologies in a silo, but it's very important for industries to find a use case for them. Now,
right,
NLP is not a new thing. Our experts have been trying to understand language and try to teach the machines to learn the language in a way to understand the context, right? You remember
right,
old days when speech to text used to happen or text to speech used to happen. It would sound so robotic, and these days when you convert text to speech, you can't really tell whether it's a live person, it's a robot talking, right? I mean, that's the level of advancement we made in kind of understanding speech, and the ability for us to make a machine also understand what language means, and the complexities around the accents, the complexities around different dialects, and so on and so forth. So one technology
right,
that is really taken up as a big use case in communication is speech analytics or NLP to that extent, where the idea is that there's so much interaction being happening between consumers and the companies. it's very difficult to really understand what's going on. I mean, in
Right.
traditional environments, people used to, pick up a random sample of calls or even chats or emails and trying to understand what's wrong, bring in Six Sigma statistical methodologies to do root cause analysis. But everybody knew that's not the efficient way of doing things. One, it would
Right.
would take us so much time and energy, and I'm saying it from a person who's done it firsthand. I've deployed Six Sigma projects and methodologies in so many areas of customer communication, and it would be a pain to kind of look at the data sample, having somebody listen to those calls. So that paradigm had to shift to a place where we could automate a lot of things. One, trying to understand what's actually happening during a conversation. What is wrong? And when you understand what is wrong, then you'd be able to kind of go to a point where you can say, okay, this is wrong, but why is it wrong? And that's where root cause analysis is very important. And that's where automation really helps you get down to the root cause. For people who probably are listening right now, they'd appreciate the fact that making a decision based upon 400 sample size, it's a statistical number, 95% probability sample. It's not an easy thing. You cannot make business decisions at that level.
Right.
But on the other side, when you bring in automation, you can increase the sample size. You can increase the amount of interactions you are bringing in the purview of your analysis. That it's very easy for the business leaders to then say, oh, you know what? I believe in this data. I know that this data actually makes sense, and I can make changes, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
so that perspective has really come in handy for a lot of organizations who are in the customer communication space. Speech analytics is helping a lot of customers and a lot of companies. One, identify issues which are impacting their customers, but also at the same time identifying what are the things that are impacting their own performance metrics as well, right? Are
Right.
there issues with their core products? Are there issues with the people who are on lower agents, whether they are not trained properly? All of those things, they need a validation. And
Right.
technology, especially speech analytics, has helped bring that analysis to the masses, and also making it possible for even smaller organizations to do that kind of automation. So I think
Right.
that's the biggest change that has happened. And it's not just voice. You can do the same analysis on chat, emails, where you can use technology and automation to do a lot of your RCA. So people
Right.
who were in a role of process engineering, restructuring of processes, now they have more tools in their hands. Earlier,
Right.
everything was manual. Now they can leverage technology to do their analysis, and they're more effective, right? And
Right.
what is
Right.
happening is that those organizations within the organizations, instead of a cost function, now are becoming a value function, because
Right.
you're not just looking at a cost investment, you're looking at what value eventually you are bringing to your end customer and to your internal processes as well. So
Right.
that's a couple of examples. There's so many other things which have an application. Chatbots, for example, is another application where instead of manually replying to chats of your customers and answering basic queries, you can automate all of that.
Right.
So the amount of application and use cases, especially in the communication side of the world, is humongous. And companies who are actually leveraging that opportunity are the ones who are advancing, are the ones who will be different from the ones who are not adopting technology to streamline their communication channels. Long
Got it.
answer,
Got it.
but very passionate about this topic. So
That's
so long
absolutely fine.
answer, yeah.
We can listen to you as long as you want. So the what I'm hearing is the granularity uh, into the data which these platforms bring is one of the key points to note down. Earlier, the set of data or the kind of insights you could derive from were limited, but now you have much more granular level insights being thrown at you. All right. So another application, if I may be wrong here, but another application which is of interest to me is technology has enabled something called a social listening also these days. brands can understand the sentiments of their social media presence and the customer sentiments from their brand presence also. So that is another interesting field which I have come
Yeah,
across.
the
Oh,
the marketeers never had that kind of power earlier. I
absolutely.
mean, you remember you are a marketeer. You would know your challenges because of the
Right,
fact that everything is social now. It's very important to listen to your customers on social, and
right,
it's not possible. And I'm telling you, it's not possible to do it manually. Nobody can do it. There are hundreds of
right,
pages which a company would maintain, different channels. So it's very important to leverage
right,
technology, to listen to what your customers are saying, and then not just to listen, but also to decide whatever the customers are saying is a pain point or it's an appreciation. I mean, even that level of a difference. And technology can really bring in that power to the marketeers to dissect what's happening on social and take appropriate
right,
actions. I mean, so many examples. You remember what happened to Nestle and Maggie a few years ago?
right,
Maggie had to shut down their entire production line for a few months because of one
right,
rumor that could not be nipped in the bud because nobody knew how to listen to social at that time. Even such big
right,
organizations could not. I mean, if they could have
right.
addressed that small issue right up front, could have responded to the rumors, and a lot of organizations they are doing it right now,
Yep,
but
yep,
they
yep,
weren't at that time, and the company had to pay the
yep.
price, right? So of course,
Right,
marketing is one another area of automation where it's a huge use case.
right, right. We have tools like Mention, which even monitors the brand mentions across the entire
Yes.
gamut of social media. All right.
Mhm.
So my next question is, if imagine that if an organization, want to kick off their automation journey with a goal of improving customer experience, so what is the best starting point and baby steps for them, according to you?
I think a lot of organizations don't even realize that it has to be baby steps. I think they think it's all binary whether they are doing automation or they are not doing automation, because
Right,
I think a lot of leaders do not really appreciate and understand what automation really means. And I think it's the industry to blame in general, because the buzzwords are hyped so much that the people who don't really understand technology, they get so much caught up into the technicalities that they don't really understand that automation isn't really doing fancy stuff like AI or machine learning right off the bat.
right,
Automation was happening 50 years ago as well. Automation was happening 100 years ago as well. It's just that you need to first understand and recognize the areas where you think there is a problem, and then bring in a technology solution, which doesn't have to be fancy. When I say doesn't have to be fancy, writing an Excel macro to
yes,
calculate a dashboard or a report automatically is also automation.
absolutely,
People might not believe the fact that that is automation in this world, but it is, for at least for companies who are starting their journey.
right,
So my recommendation is very similar to what we did. You haven't been with the company for long, Vivek, but we started. When we started, we had a very small team. We call it as an MIS team. They were primarily the team who took care of reports. All of those reports were, of course, manual Excel sheets. Data was from different areas. Now, how we converted that MIS team to a BI team is, I think, the first step of moving away from a lot of manual labor intensive work towards more value driven reporting and dashboarding. And that's the first step. Have your people learn macros on Excel, have them write codes to automate a lot of reporting that otherwise is a redundant task.
right,
Once you achieve that, let's say for example you identify 20 different areas where you are doing a lot of manual stuff, and you do this kind of base level automation, the value and the return you gets you addicted. And when I say gets you addicted, it gets you addicted in a way that once as a business leader you start to see the results,
Right.
It's a no-brainer to continue to move, right? And then you
Right.
continue to move with small steps. You don't want to jump and again jump over and start doing machine learning and artificial intelligence, but
Right.
start looking at how you can make things easier. I mean, even for people who are not tech savvy, it's as simple as that. Look at areas which you think are labor intensive. You believe that those things actually can be done in a more efficient way. Have
Right.
people learn new things to automate those things, and then have those people learn new things, right? So, that's the way you baby step it, and I think a lot of organizations fail in that aspect to not recognize those small initiatives, and they kind of wait for something big to happen, and that something big probably would never happen. Now, in earlier days, what would happen is,
Gaurav, your
giving an
voice is
example of speech.
breaking.
And
Just a sec.
is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. um so, like earlier days, speech analytics was an expensive initiative to launch in any organization, right?
Right.
The technology has gotten cheaper over the years, because a lot of players have jumped in. But in those days, you didn't have to make that jump, because people who could not, they were just waiting for that to happen, and they missed everything they could have done in between. So the point is, start the journey, start small, and when you start to see the results, things will start moving on its own. Why? Because then you'd have people who know more, you'd have people who have new skills. They are the ones who would bring the knowledge and the automation to you, and then you won't even have to drive it anymore. So it's like a chain reaction, but somebody has to kind of drive it, and that drive has to come from the top. So business leaders, they need to identify that there is a requirement to automate, and the initiatives, they have to start from that level.
Right. So we have some questions coming from the audience. So one question I would like to take now, because it's kind of related to this. So automation is always considered to be investment heavy initiative. So are there any cost effective options which organizations can opt before committing a significant budget? Any examples you can share?
I think I just gave examples. So you don't have to really start with expensive stuff. Everybody uses Excel, right?
Right.
Now,
Right.
the other thing that has happened, Vivek, is that a lot of services have moved or are moving to the cloud. Now, cloud,
Right.
people really mistake cloud for a lot of different things. But when I say cloud, I say that a lot of software that was only available as an enterprise software. When I say enterprise, I mean expensive. It had to
Right.
be, installed on your own networks. You had to spend a huge capex to buy new hardware, and then buy very expensive software licenses. Now things are changing. Even
Right.
very enterprise level companies are moving towards cloud. When I say cloud, they are bringing their services on the cloud in a subscription model, so that it's easier for even smaller organizations to experience how to leverage that software in their own environment. So instead of
Right.
spending $5,000 as an enterprise license for a year or for lifetime, you can probably spend $20 for one user license for a SaaS product, which will bring automation to you by not investing too much. So
Right.
every single problem. Now, thing is that a lot of innovation is happening in terms of startups as well. Everybody is looking at launching new companies. Even smallest of the business problem now have become business cases for new companies to begin. So if you have a problem statement, go type it in Google, and you'd find at least 20 companies who are offering services, right? Go try
Right.
them. Go try, use their trial offers. Um,
Right.
it's guaranteed that at least what you're doing right now will be a lot better using their services. Now, spending $20 on a license, is it justified? Of course,
Yep.
and then $20 becomes $200, because then you had 20 people using those licenses. So
Right.
again, you don't really have to make this big leap and just keep sitting and waiting for something to happen. You can make the small steps happen right now. there are a lot of options available to bring technology and automation to all your processes. Any function, any vertical, any problem statement you might have in the organization, there is a solution available.
Right, right. I think that is the simplest advice a technology leader can give, I guess. Go to Google and type in your problem statement
Yeah,
and
I
look
mean,
out
the
for the right
point
tool.
again is that I mean, just to add is that you don't have to have your own development team to
Right,
start the automation, right? A lot of companies don't have their own development teams. They don't have developers,
right,
and you don't need them. There are
right,
solutions which are being developed by companies for people like you, for companies
right,
like you. Go leverage
right.
those solutions, and you'd improve your processes, and you'd see the value fairly quickly.
God, thank you so much for that answer, Gaurav. So, my next question. I am not a technology person, but I have to ask these questions because these are the terms which are in. So, you mentioned about artificial intelligence and machine learning. So, I want to understand that how powerful are they from a CX technology standpoint, and you can you give some examples of their role, the role which they are playing right now?
So again, Vivek, as I said, mentioned, these are all buzzwords, and these buzzwords continue to change. We had big
Right,
data some time back. Even as our own organization, I personally, devoted so much time towards big data and bringing that technology in, and then all of a sudden, nobody's talking about big data anymore. But that doesn't
right,
mean big data isn't there, or that doesn't mean big data wasn't there before the term became so popular. We've
right,
been doing coding for a long, long time, and I mean, at the base level, everything is coding, right?
right,
You are writing a piece of code that solves a problem. Now, that problem might be a small problem, like adding two numbers. That might be a
right,
bigger problem where you are managing a business transaction between a bank and a customer. In the end,
right,
there is a piece of code which is being written by somebody, and that
right.
is functioning. What it does is it's a piece of code that has been tested for any errors, any bugs. It is a repeatable process. It runs every single time, does the task without errors, and gets the job done. Now,
Right,
how it gets the job done kind of brings in a lot of variation in terms of how we look at these different technologies and terms. Earlier programming was simply called coding. Then people started to deal with a lot of data, and when they thought it's a lot of data, they thought of calling it as big data, because a lot of data is big data. But there was already a lot of data available, right? But somebody
right,
thought of the word big, and it
right,
became fairly famous. But it's not the case that there wasn't a lot of data being already dealt with. We already had huge banks who were online. We had a
right,
lot of telcos who were dealing in millions of lines of
right,
data of their customers. So we're already tackling so much data already. It's just that that whole term became popular, and now artificial intelligence and machine age is here, and everybody's talking about it. But essentially, in the back end, it's a piece of code. It's a,
right,
it's a line, it's a program that works to do something. Now, the idea behind AI is that humans should be able to teach machines now to do their job. It's very similar to robotics, right?
right,
But the point is that in earlier days, the code was simple. You write four lines, and the task will be done. And anything outside those four lines will be thrown an error, right? The idea with the machine learning and artificial intelligence is that teach the machine with so many use cases or so many examples in the real world that nothing can probably fall outside the purview of those examples we've already taught you. So think of yourself or a machine as a small kid. You teaching the kid everything around him and the environment, and your idea is that I've already taught the kid 97 or 98% of the things around him. So 97 of the percent of the times he'll be able to do that job.
right,
Maybe only few percent of the cases he doesn't know exist in the world will fall outside the purview, and that's what machine learning is. So what we're doing is we are telling the machine that these are millions of cases or millions of examples the way things have gone in the past, so learn from it. And next time something comes like that, it should already be in your brain, and you give the answer or you give a solution. So
right,
essentially, when you do machine learning, what you're doing is that you're gathering humongous amount of data with inputs and outputs, which has already happened. And an example being, let's say, an interaction between a customer and an agent. You know, So feeding so many interactions, like millions of interactions into the into a machine, and also feeding the output, so that the machine learns that in a certain case this should be the output, so that
Right.
it's able to predict the output next time the same scenario comes in. So it's essentially more intelligent than just a simple piece of code. It feels like it's thinking. It's not thinking. It has been taught to think, and that's
Right.
what machine learning and AI is. The applications are very broad.
Right.
I mean, AI is everywhere these days. From Tesla developing cars who can ride on their own. They can make decisions on the go. That is artificial intelligence. The best
Right.
example to that extent. In our case, examples I think I've already mentioned, but let's say, for example, you're talking to a bot, but you don't feel like you're talking to a bot. It feels like there's a
Right.
human on the other side. Now, that's how you've trained a machine to respond, to make you feel like that it's a human who's talking to you, and that's
Right.
what machine learning is. So all of our speech analytics is based on machine learning. We've fed in thousands and thousands of hours of audio into the system, so that it starts recognizing what a person is saying, and in certain cases what's the context of what he's saying. Now,
Right.
my accent is very different from yours is very different from the third person. But let's say, for example, if you gather thousands of people like us and thousands of hours of our interaction and you feed into the system, your assumption is you are covering 98% of the whole universe from a variation standpoint. So the machine already has something in the database that resembles my voice or my context. So it's able to predict what's going to happen in a specific scenario. And that's what is
Right.
machine learning. So all the automation in terms of bots, which we are using these days, are prime examples of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Um,
Got it.
there are a lot of other applications as well, but it would take a lot of time to discuss those. But I think
I
these
know.
are the simplest of examples, which I think everybody can understand in terms of the services they're already dealing with. You probably would have chatted with a bot one time or the
Yep.
other and not figured it's a bot. I mean, we
Yeah.
are at
Yeah.
that stage now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are a lot of applications with machine learning and artificial intelligence built in these days. Right. So
Yeah.
continuing on these buzzwords, there are two more which I want to talk about. One is RPA, which is robotic process automation, and NLP, which you mentioned. These are two buzzwords which we have been all hearing for quite some time now when it comes to automation. So how important are they, and are they here to stay for a longer time?
Again, I mean, the buzzwords won't stay, Vivek. The buzzwords would continue to change. But technology is there to stay. The technology is
Right.
not just here to stay, but also to advance. Things we thought weren't possible a few years ago is extremely possible now. So it's only to your imagination what can be done. I mean,
Right.
things that were like a sci-fi movie in earlier days is very real these days. So
Right.
it's all about what you can invent, and that's what the technology is also about. Now, RPA is another thing that is happening fairly broadly in an outsourcing and in a customer experience environment. And the idea here is, again, not very different from what I've been talking already. The idea here is to deploy a piece of code which will take over redundant tasks. Now, RPA bots aren't, maybe as expansive in terms of labor to create a machine learning algorithm or artificial intelligence. There are a lot of tools available which you can use to automate your redundant tasks. When I say redundant tasks, now let's say, for example, you have a back office environment where your people are
Right.
scraping information off of PDF files, right? Now, it's such a redundant task. It does have variation, but if you look at it from a high level, you can automate that task. Why should somebody really use their manual labor to copy and paste from a PDF file to an Excel file or a Word doc, right? Let the
Right.
machine
Right.
do it. For the machine to do it, you have to teach the machine, saying, hey, you know what? If you find a word that says Gaurav, copy it and paste it to somewhere else, right? And that
Right.
becomes an RPA, a robotic process automation, where a robot is taking over your manual redundant tasks in an organization. There are multiple types of RPAs. One is
Right. Right.
called manned RPA or unmanned robots. essentially is how much of an interaction these robots need, uh, kind of defines their type. Can't get into
Right.
details, but the
Yeah.
unmanned ones, they work on their own. They don't need any intervention. If they come
Right.
across a roadblock, they'll figure out something. The manned robots, they need your intervention. They'll go to a point and they'll wait for your input. So you have to have somebody giving them input, right?
Right.
So that's what is happening. And RPA, I think, is solving a lot of business problems for a lot of organizations who are employing manual labor for redundant tasks. I think if you have a set of people who are doing this kind of work, you should really seriously start looking at using RPAs to kind of streamline that manual work.
Right. Right.
And NLP is something we've discussed extensively in
Right.
detail, so we can
Cool.
skip that
All right.
for the time being.
Right. Cool. So, since we have been talking about how all these technologies, these automations can be used in delivering a good customer experience, but one important aspect of customer experience is the customer feedback process, right? So customer feedback is the one which determines whether the customer is happy or not, and the effective processes you have in place, the better it is. So how automation can improve the customer feedback process and help organizations improve programs like NPS, CSAT, etc.
Yep, yep. I mean, I think we've touched it a bit earlier, but
Yeah.
now all your all your metrics, fancy metrics like NPS or CSAT, they all depend upon certain aspects of your service delivery, and those are called drivers. I like to call them key drivers. Those key drivers, I mean, aren't very different for industries and verticals to an extent.
Right.
We used to do a lot of key driver analysis for a lot of different clients, looking at their CSAT results and trying to figure out what are those key things which are actually impacting customer experience. Why would they rate you low or why would they rate you high? On one side, there's an aspect of your product quality. That is something you cannot really control, being somebody who is handling customer experience or handling communications part, right?
Right.
So
Right.
those are the people who are actually creating the product are responsible for that. The rest portion is your communication. The rest portion is your service. That is something which is in your control. So we try
Right.
to understand what are those key drivers which really impacts customer experience in terms of impacting your NPS and CSAT. And we figured that there are only few things. The first one being the customer effort, which I spoke about earlier. How much time the customer is investing in getting a resolution is probably one of the biggest factors which contributes towards customer experience. And there are substitute factors or corresponding factors like resolution, whether resolution happened on that call or not, how courteous the agent or the person who's trying to resolve the problem is, and then the whole other gambit of professionalism and whatnot. Now, if you look at these drivers, you can figure that you can bring in technology to really streamline a lot of those things. Customer effort, let's say for example, I told you the biggest customer effort is when customer has to wait for a resolution, when customer has to be on a phone
Right.
line waiting for an agent to answer him. If you bring in a chatbot doesn't care. The chatbot doesn't work on our timelines. A chatbot can handle hundreds of customers at the same time. It only depends upon how much machine power you have it behind your chatbot. So
Right.
bringing in a simple chatbot can reduce your wait time from, let's say, 30 minutes to even less than 1 minute. There goes your customer experience in terms of lower customer effort, right? Resolution is another one. I mean, humans can make mistakes sometimes. Humans have
Right.
to research. Machines are more efficient in those cases. I mean, if you tell them that this is the area you have to look for information and that is what the customer is looking for, then it's better to have the machine do it for you in easier
Right.
way to do those things. So all those things in combined does impact customer experience. It helps them feel that their queries are being sorted and responded to fairly quickly, and they're getting resolution at a higher rate. So of course the NPS and CSAT will go high. So automation has a very strong correlation with how your NPS is trending. If you're a very traditional organization, there's as much you can do. But if you are more forthcoming in terms of accepting technology and you are more innovative, that's where you bring in the new technology aspects and new innovation to help your customers. And the customers appreciate that, and they'll reward you by giving you a better NPS score and staying with you
Right,
for a
right.
longer time.
Right, got it. So, since you touched upon human versus machine, I have a controversial question for you. So, there's a lot of debate going on about. There's a common belief also that automation is a threat for jobs performed by humans. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Very controversial, absolutely. I think there be a 50-50 split between people who think either ways. I am on the more positive side because I do believe that automation is not new. Automation has been happening for ages, and it's the course of the natural course of how things work. Things change. People find better ways of doing things. I mean, if you really have to be philosophical, people used to make fire with their hands. In those times, we don't do that anymore.
Right,
We've advanced, right? That doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. So the advancements in technology has happened since we've come into existence, and that will continue to happen. And the good thing is that people have evolved, people know how to change, and that technology advancement brings in new opportunities as well at the same time. Now,
right,
do people or will people lose jobs? Of course, they have been losing jobs and they will continue to lose jobs. And the ones who will be losing the jobs are the ones who would be the ones to say no to upskilling. They would be the ones who would sit on their behinds and not do anything and just wait for technology to take over jobs and then be jobless. The ones who would
right,
stand up and say, "Hey, you know what? Let me learn new technology. Let me know how new things are working." Those kind of people would always have a place. Those kind of people would always have a role because the organizations will create new roles because of automation. So let me give you an example. The fact that we are bringing a lot of automation in MK, that means that we need to have people doing that job. We need to have people actually bringing in that technology. We need to have people learning that technology. So on one side, yes, few people will be turned redundant, but at the same time, a new set of opportunities are being created for people who are willing to grab those opportunities. So it's a
right,
very philosophical debate whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But I would say it's not new. Has been happening in contact centers as well. We've been listening, we've been hearing people saying that there will be no contact center agents anymore because everything will be done by bots. Not going to happen. At least not in my view. There will always be a human touch that would be required. But humans should be, for very obvious reasons, be doing a higher value work than redundant work. Let the machines
right,
do low level work. Let them do the dirty work. Let us do the more fancy, more beautiful, and more productive work in the world. And that's the way it should be, right? So,
right,
yeah, I am
right,
the more positive and the optimistic, the one
right.
who thinks that no, it doesn't have a negative impact,
Impact. Right, right.
so to
So
say.
the key takeaway here is learning never stops. Keep learning, keep upskilling yourself,
Yes.
stay updated. Yeah. All right. So
Yeah,
we
I
are coming
mean,
toward the yeah, we are coming towards the
go ahead.
end of the show. So my last two questions. Sec, uh, Second to last question is, I know your team at MK work on loads of automation projects for customers in the space of CX. So I would love you to throw some light on some of those projects and its significance.
So, since we are a full service BPO, Vivek, it's very important for us to also adopt and adapt to all the new technologies, whether those
Right,
are in terms of speech analytics or bringing in bots. So, we've been doing that fairly aggressively, not just for our end clients, but also for our own processes as well. A lot of
right,
work is so we have a dedicated team who works on a lot of automation requirements. We always have things coming in from HR, from admin, from a lot of different areas in the business who need automation, who need things to be done in a better way, and we try to solve those problems through technology. So I think that's an important aspect which we've tackled, and I think we've not if not mastered, we've gotten really better at handling those kind of queries and problem statements. But yeah, we cannot afford as an organization being part of the BPO industry to not look at technology. And I think we are in the forefront, and that's been kind of recognized by our clients who've been with us for more than 10 years. So yeah, we are doing
Right.
a lot of stuff in this space. People who are not with MK, they can go to our website and see the new fancy stuff we are doing.
Right.
Fairly exciting.
Right, right. So there are people asking for a version 2.0 of this session. They want more from you. So they're thanking me for scheduling this and asking you to come back and educate them more on technology. We'll schedule that soon. So my final question, which I ask every guest who comes on the show, is how has COVID-19 impacted Gaurav and your team?
Impacted Gaurav, I have a bigger tummy compared to what I had earlier because there's no gym anymore. So that's my personal impact. But in general, it's you know it's these are difficult. It has impacted all the organizations in a very tough way. I feel
Right,
for companies who have been going through these tough times, but luckily we've been able to survive this time so far. We were up and running fairly quickly. I think on the negative side, everybody knows the negatives. People losing jobs, and a lot of people also not outside supporting the economy because there's no spending. People are trying to save money, so the economies are tanking as well. But the benefits as well. I mean, again, being philosophical, there have been some very positive impacts on the environment in general. We have better skies now. We have better roads in terms of less pollution. Some people love working from home, my man. I mean, you won't believe, but I won't believe either. But some people do, right? They've been able to spend more time with their families. Friends have come closer. I've started calling people I never used to call earlier. I mean, all those things, are the positive impacts. And I think that's how the outlook should be. I mean, such difficult situations will continue to come. I think organizations who continue to keep a positive outlook and try to be innovative to find solutions are the ones who are going to survive. And same goes for my team as well. I have a very spread out team across entire India. I have one team member who supports our clients from Kashmir in Srinagar,
wow.
and he sits between beautiful mountains with snow-capped mountains. I mean, it's been working fine. I mean, we haven't had any downtimes for our clients. We've been meeting SLA. So yeah, I mean, some good things are also happening.
Right,
But this will go as well. We'll come back to normalcy, but it'll be a
right.
new world we'll be in, and
Absolutely,
more
absolutely.
exciting one.
All right. Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you so much for joining. It was really enlightening and a lot of good stuff happening from a technology standpoint for CX. So hopefully I'll bring you back for some other topic very soon. Thank you so much for taking time and joining me.
Thank you, Vivek. Nice to be
All,
talking to you. Thank you.
thanks. All right, that was Gaurav Rai, Senior VP, Innovation and Strategy at MattsenKumar. Guys, lot of activities, lot of actions which you carry out, mundane actions can be automated easily using technologies and tools which are available today. So check it out. Check out various options available to you. If you have any questions on how to adopt the right technology for improving your customer experience, you know where to find us, www.mattsenkumar.com, or you can personally connect to me on LinkedIn and ask any question. I'll direct you to Gaurav Rai for sure. So thank you so much for joining me today. And this is not a regular show as I started off, because I need to bring on nice guests with exciting topics. So I'm taking it easy, and I'll bring on more guests who will talk and bring insights about delivering a superior customer experience for your organization. So thank you so much for joining. See you all soon. Take care.